Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley.
And today we are joined by mystical life coach, Madison Creel.
Hey, Madison. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, you guys.
Thanks for being here. I love your topic today, people pleasing and positive thinking. I am definitely run those big time. So I would love to know why you chose the topic. Let's just go right in.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, this is common for a lot of people. And this is also something that has shown up in my life, basically my whole life. People pleasing, positive thinking. They also don't seem that bad on the surface, right? What's wrong with, helping people out, wanting people to be happy, thinking positively, not being a negative person? I'm just trying to think of the roots of all this too. I feel like growing up in like very strong dogmatic religious system, you get the selfless service, you get the needing to put others before yourself, and it also has that feeling of almost like if you don't, you're selfish. If you don't, you're bad. If you focus on yourself and don't sacrifice every bit of yourself, then you're seen as less than. And so I think with that background, and then being a little more sensitive to other people's emotions, I've just wanted to make sure that I'm always seen as someone who's a giver, someone who is sacrificial and selfless, because it makes me seem better, makes me feel good, right? So I wanted to kind of go into why people pleasing might be seen as more of a wound, coming from woundedness, and when it wouldn't be. Because I had one of my clients asked me a couple weeks ago, it's like, is people pleasing always stemming from woundedness? And is it always like a kind of a trauma response? And the thing is, it depends on the energy behind it. Right? So it's not like every time you do something nice for somebody, it's considered you're trying to compensate for some sort of wound. If you really focus and drop in and be with the energy behind it, such as like for me, I would get a lot of anxiousness around the confrontation or not wanting to upset somebody. And so that would result in me kind of sacrificing little bits of myself or overextending myself. And so unless you don't feel like you have that anxiousness or any sort of, if you're not compensating for anything, if you're just trying to do something nice out of openness and connection or in compassion, then that's different. So it's really staying tuned and being with the energy underneath and the energy behind the action.
Yeah, beautiful. I too also have to check myself constantly of, am I coming from the wounding of people pleasing, and why am I people pleasing? And then is it coming from a place of like genuine open-heartedness? Like, I want to give you this just moment of love because in this moment, I respect you. I admire you. I love you. And it actually happened to me this morning of one of my friends texted me, and I felt like what she was telling me, there was a lot that I wanted to say about it. But instead of saying anything, all I said was, that's amazing. And that's so beautiful, because there's this part of me that's still coming from weakness that doesn't want to say something that might hurt her. So I always resort, especially in this friendship, to how can I please her? How can I make her feel seen and loved and validated? And that's just a reflection of where I'm still really powerless and weak, and I don't want to be called out on stuff because I don't want to go into what it feels like, and I don't want to feel what it feels like. And so especially with Christianity too, like so much, and for me culturally, like it's always about how do we put others before us? How do we make sure everyone else is happy? How do we make sure they're comfortable? And it's like just stemming from a deeper wound of disempowerment and powerlessness. Yeah.
Yeah, because if they're happy, then there's not going to be any some form of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So we change ourselves to appease them,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately we're giving away our power in that moment, and we're sacrificing what may really need to be said or some part of us for them to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And a lot, yeah, for me, it's the confrontation too. It's like, what is this bringing up in me? And I also kind of pair that with invalidating my own feelings, because if I'm able to kind of numb out what I feel, if I'm able to push away what I feel, which I have gotten really good at growing up, then I can put whatever they're feeling first.
Mm-hmm.
And some people might say, like, especially when we all have this background of like society and a religious background of like, what's wrong with that? And I found myself like just kind of sacrificing. It's subtle, but it's like little pieces of yourself when you wake up every day and you're living. It's almost like you're living for other people. It's like what your decisions that you make, the things that you think, what you do. It's almost like, what could I do to make other people happy? And this would even bleed out into like my work environment, my relationships, my romantic partnerships. I'd even like, there'd be times in the workplace where I knew I wasn't getting paid enough and I wasn't getting enough hours, but the idea and the thought of like bringing that up would make me so anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And because I wouldn't want somebody else to think badly of me. And when I went deep into what this was bringing up in me, it was like I needed to be liked by people. Like and then I thought, okay, so I need to be liked because, like, why do I need to be liked by other people? Because then I feel valuable and I feel worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And why am I needing these people to make me feel this way? Like, why am I so dependent on them? Because I don't internally feel worthy. I don't feel valued. And I wasn't able to be that for myself. And I mean, I'm in recovery. I'm a recovering people pleaser. So this is kind of a process. There's things that come up every day, and having the awareness to know, like, okay, is this really coming from an open heart? Is this coming from a really solid, compassionate place? Or is what I'm doing and what I'm saying coming from weakness? And it's the more awareness you bring around it, the more you stay in tune with yourself, you feel that energy so much more. Like you said, Ellie, earlier, like the weakness, the inferiority, like it feels small. Like you feel like you're kind of shrinking,
Mm-hmm.
and you're making this other person bigger. And this also brings up like the equality, like wanting to love ourselves as much as others. And I feel like I felt so bad doing that for a long time, that like if I'm truly love and if I'm truly this divine person, I will want to serve and be there for other people. I need to not value the things that I want as much. But I had learned through this work at Masters of Self University, doing this deep inner work, I realized that love is for everybody. It's not just for the people outside of me. If I don't love me, then that's not love. And that's just wounding playing out. We're all equal. It doesn't mean that I'm better than everybody else, because initially, especially when you hear like, oh, love yourself, put yourself first, that type of verbiage, and especially with like the religious background, it makes you feel like, okay, you're being selfish. but that's not like a hierarchy. It's not like if I do that, it means everybody else is less. I feel like with that kind of background, it's very like one way or the other. Like you need, if you're this divine person, the other people can't be, or vice versa. It takes away the equality and how we're all equal and how we all deserve just as much love. And so having to go into that has really helped me find my own worth and my own value. And even though, I mean, I do have things come up day to day, it's just really having that awareness to go in and realize where it's coming from and what part of my, like, what part of myself is showing up.
When I was a manager in hospitality a number of years ago now, I just wanted everyone to like me. And I really just wanted all of my staff to like me and not hate me, not talk shit about me. And after working in hospitality for 10 plus years, I knew how much I used to bitch about the managers behind their back, because everyone does that, right? And I didn't want to be that person that made all of their employees miserable and unhappy. I just wanted to be liked. I wanted to make people's lives better. But there's a fine line there of like wanting to serve your employees and then just making decisions for the company to make sure that people don't hate you, to make sure that people like you. And I look back now and it's like it was textbook people pleasing. And I couldn't handle the emotions of what it would bring up if one of my employees didn't like me. Just the thought of it, like thinking that I've made somebody pissed off or angry about the decisions that I made when I was in charge or whatever, like leading a team. And I can see now that was just my projection of my own weakness, because I couldn't handle them being pissed off at me. The thought of them having to move through anger towards me is my own projection of not being able to handle my own anger within inside and handle an angry person or handle anyone that hates me. And it's not a place you want to lead from, is constantly just wanting people to like you or to be happy. And it's so liberating recognizing these programs in ourselves and what an impact we can make on the world when we shift out of this into a more powerful place. And that's my experience with this program that it brought up.
Yeah, it's like that like emotional freedom. And when you really think about that, like throughout your day, how often are you triggered out of peace, out of happiness, out of just contentness? And it's kind of like a lot of my triggers, especially on people pleasing, are in the gut. And so when when someone's upset with you, or if someone isn't showing you that affirmation or giving you the praise that you want or expect, it's like I kind of feel like a little drop in my gut, and then I'm really in my head, and so my head starts going and going and going. And when you are constantly, like, from day to day being pulled out of that, it's so hard to really piece together like who you actually are too. Because first of all, you're going in and you're doing these things and saying these things and being this person for other people. And you also don't have the mental space or like the space of being to really know who you are outside of all of these actions and outside of basically doing all these things for other people, because your mind is taken up by it and your energy is in it. And so it's like once you have that liberation, that freedom, that when somebody does come up to you and they don't like the decision you made, or they don't like what you said, being so true within yourself and feeling so confident, like knowing and holding that space for yourself, like knowing that they are just projecting their stuff onto you. And also knowing, there could be times that you do happen to say something that hurt their feelings, or maybe you did step out of line, and coming from a place of truth and honesty and confidence in knowing, okay, what do I need to resolve here? And then what is this other person is pushing onto me? And so having that freedom and making that space within yourself also, it just helps you really hone in and tune into who you are and give you space to really explore that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still, speaking about the subject, I'm like, man, girl, you still got this program strong running. And I think it shows up in so many different ways, like on the corporate side in my career and even on social media. Sometimes it stresses me out when like one of my videos does well, because then I go into the next video's got to do well. And like, what if people don't like it? And then I start getting into my head. And then what I produce is nothing but a pile of wanting to make sure that you still like me and wanting to make sure you still follow me. And then I got to check myself real quick. Like, Ellie, if you're not coming from like authenticity and genuine open heartedness and like you really want to share, you do not post. If you should see my drafts folder, like I have so many where I'm watching it, I'm like, no, you were trying to please people. Like you're trying to still get people to. And when someone like writes a negative comment, I still go, gotta protect myself, gotta make sure to, and it's like, Ellie, chill. Like these little things are here to show you that you still run this program. And I can feel like the people pleasing is so interesting, because I can immediately, I don't know about you guys, but I can feel my inner child like immediately. And she's just saying, like,
Same.
do you like me? Like, ask me to be in your group. And it's all, and my whole life, I've just wanted people to like me. And like, when people like me, I'm like, I'm cool. Like, I need my external to validate that I am something, that I am someone, that I'm cool, that I'm loved, that I'm accepted, all these things. And recently I hung out with like a new friend, and afterwards she texted me. She was like, yo, you're seriously so awesome. And I was like, yeah, I'm awesome. And then I was just like, wait, Ellie, why did she say that? And why are you getting such a high off of it? And I realized like that whole time we were hanging out, all I did was listen to her, and all I did was ask questions about her, and like every time she would ask questions about me, I would get really small and I would get really quiet, and I didn't make things about me. So of course I'm awesome, because I just provided you the space to be, and I listened, and I was 100% present. But who gets sacrificed in all of that is me.
Right.
And what I saw in that hangout was like, wow, Ellie, you still play small, you still don't share, and you're still wanting this new friend to like you so that you can have a new bestie, and like you can be loved by this person. And so her comment to me was actually a great gift to see like how I'm still showing up in the program of people pleasing, and also very, very small.
Right. Yeah. And it's also about the energy behind what you were doing. Like you had the awareness of, okay, this is why I'm doing this. I'm sure there are times where you're, open-hearted, present, listening, and you're not coming from woundedness, and it's just you're in your, in your heart space.
Mm.
But then, yeah, it's like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Why?
It's the $1 million question.
Right. That's literally every single podcast you guys do. That's like the basis.
Yeah.
Like, what's the why behind the action? What's the why behind the behavior? And this specifically too, I could see it. Like, you're also, I realize like when you are people pleasing, and I've spent a lot of my life like walking on eggshells and making sure I don't make anybody mad, and you're also robbing that person of an opportunity to see what is coming up for them when they're triggered, when you are sacrificing and being small and letting them be big and when you're preventing them from being triggered, they don't get to see an opportunity to heal and to go into what's coming up. Though they don't have to. I mean, a lot of times you might be interacting with somebody who isn't on the same path, or they aren't seeing their triggers as a way to go in and heal and do the deep inner work. But that's also not your problem. You are your problem in a sense. You're the only one you should be focusing on. And I noticed that huge in my romantic partnerships too. And I didn't have that perspective until after doing this work and feeling more whole within myself, like being there and being okay with, anger and frustration and irritation, and not making it about me. It's like, okay, I still run these programs. I'm not not saying I'm all healed, but it's a lot easier to have to kind of step back and really see the truth of the situation, and give space for this person to really work through what they're going through, and not make it okay. Every single outburst or every single emotion is my fault, and make it all about me.
Yeah, power can only recognize power, and that's the next part of this is, the first part is, oh, I'm disempowering myself, and then as you beautifully went into, oh, now I'm disempowering them, because when we people please and we coddle them, and we do everything to make sure that they're happy, we're actually robbing them of their moment of healing. We're robbing them of their ability to see what's going on. Our amazing leader, we can always tell when when we're running programs is she'll go silent, and that silence is normally a reflection, oh, we must be running some kind of program in this moment. And so what is it? And that the way that she leads is from a place of power, which reflects back to you or anyone. Where is it that I am not in that same vibration? Where am I out of alignment with that? And an example that I can give within my own family is someone very close to me. People pleasers around the family, and make sure that they always agree with whoever it is that they're talking to. And they might disagree or agree with one person and then go behind that person's back and agree with the other person. And it's just to keep whoever, and I bring this up because I absorbed it, whoever we're talking to in that moment, we're agreeing, we're keeping them happy. And all that's doing is it's not allowing that person to actually maybe hear the truth, maybe hear the hard truth. And if we stay in that place of just agreeing with everyone all of the time to keep them on our side, we're robbing them of the opportunity for them to see what's really happening and actually heal. And the powerful thing to do is say, actually, I think you're kind of off the ball there. This may be, what needs to be done, or so I'm trying to give a little bit of a vague answer because I'm not here to project or blame on anyone. But I definitely have absorbed that program of agreeing with everyone to make sure that they don't hate me. And you do that, and then you're robbing the person that actually might need to see the truth in that situation, that opportunity. And that's what's going to allow them to grow.
And I've also experienced, like, the more you have the agreeing, you don't really go into things, the more surface your relationship is. I have a friend who we've been friends for a long time, but she just, all she does is just agree with everything that you say. And I love her to death, but like our relationship is just so surface level because she doesn't like have her own opinions, or maybe she does, but she doesn't voice them. And so, and I've noticed this recently in my romantic relationship, is that there was something that came up and I didn't say it. Because it's something that I struggle with, is speaking my mind and speaking what's on my heart. And our relationship was good, has been good. It's been, happy. But there's this, thing that's been on my heart for weeks, and it wasn't until, and I knew that it might trigger him, and I knew it might start some conflict in our relationship. And so that's what I wanted to avoid. I wanted to make sure things were good and appease and all those things. And when I did bring it up, it did shake things up a little bit, but then together we worked through it. And after we worked through it, there was a whole new depth to our relationship. And it was beautiful. And it's almost like, I was explaining it to him, it's almost like our relationship is like bubble wrapped, or like there's layers, and the more you go in and kind of alleviate some of these layers, it might be kind of hard and it might hurt people's feelings, but the more depth and beauty and connection that you see on the other side. And this could be even with friendships, with coworkers. And sometimes, yeah, you might trigger them, or they might get upset, and it might dissolve the relationship. But when you have to sacrifice authenticity for complacency,
Right.
That's where the real like determining factor is, with like how deep your relationships can actually go.
That's exactly it. And from the example I gave, the energy of which you're connecting with that person is, if they're just constantly agreeing with you to keep you happy, you realize, as you said, it's just surface level. Like, you're connecting with someone from their woundedness if they're just agreeing with you to keep you happy. There's no actual depth there of what they really think or feel if they're just doing it to keep you happy, right? So yeah,
And there's nowhere you can go
being
in the
authentic,
relationship.
being authentic about what it is that like we're actually thinking and feeling, that allows for that true, like a deeper level of connection to unfold.
Right.
I was thinking, I hate to use the word unconscious and conscious, but let's just use that term, right? Before, in the old paradigm, right, even in the third dimension, right, let's just say, all we do is blame. Nobody knows how to be the way of responsibility. Nobody actually, they don't teach us this, right? Actually go, hey, that triggered you, go into it. That's your stuff. No one does that. So all we're conditioned and all we've ever done is blame other people. Well, it's their fault. Well, they're the bitch. Well, they're the asshole. And now we're the ones that are awakening that it's like, oh no, it's just a reflection of us. But then it's not like the whole world and everyone you love is doing it alongside of you. So I think for me, that's where the fear comes. It's like, I know how to do it, but like Jerry, Mike, and Kate don't know. And like, they're going to hate me and they're going to think that I'm something because they're not seeing what's reflecting back to them. And I think for me, that's where a lot of the fear comes from, is like, they're going to think I'm the problem. And I don't want them to think that I'm the problem, which is then just roots back to like, where are you powerless, Ellie? That like, who cares if they think that? Who cares? And that's where I want to get to. I'm like, who cares, Jerry?
That's the place about when they start to think that way, is like you being able to stay in that and being like, yeah, you're allowed to hate me.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Yeah.
And I don't need you to understand what it is that I'm seeing, thinking, or feeling right now. I just have to understand, okay, this is the truth.
Yeah.
This is how I'm feeling right now, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get there without going in and healing those parts of you that need Jerry, Kate, and Ashley's value and attention. Right. And it's hard. I mean, it's easy to just, say things. It's easy to be like, well, just, you have it all within yourself and love yourself, and you don't need anybody else. And that's also, when you're not truly going in and doing the work, it's all just bypassing. It's all just leading into our other topic, positive thinking, when you're just using these one-liners to make yourself feel better and prevent you from going and actually doing the work, because y'all know it's not easy. And it's a lot easier. And that's a big program for me. It's constantly working on that one. It's just, what am I telling myself to avoid and invalidate my own feelings? And bringing up that, like, the inner child work, I realized through this too that, like, the way I was raised, I was basically told that my feelings don't matter. Okay, I wasn't told that specifically, but I felt that, the energy, right? My parents were like, no, your feelings don't matter. But it was just, that's what the energy that I felt. And that it was kind of a burden, or whenever I expressed anger or sadness, it was just like, I didn't feel safe to. And so with these, like the positive thinking, the kind of convincing yourself out of your own emotions, I realized that like I'm doing that to my inner child. Like my inner child is feeling that energy from me when I'm all over here like, oh, this is the way I raised, this is how I am. It's like you'd think that I'd be able to show up differently than my parents showed up for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes the real work. You can't just like fake it.
Yep. Yep.
Energy never lies.
Yeah. That's why, listen, I did affirmations for years. All right. I wake up every morning. I'm like, okay, I'm super anxious and I don't want to live today. So then I go, no, your life is great. You're amazing. You're this, you're that. And it's like you're saying words that are essentially lies and you're trying to convince, or what people out there like to call reprogramming your mind to think differently than from what it, and it's like, it's got nothing to do with actually transforming energy, you know? So my friend recently was telling me, she's like, yeah, you know, I was feeling really unsafe and I just kept being like, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. And I started visualizing me being safe and like an energy core. And I was just like, sis, like, this is not going to do anything. Like, and it's a way for us not to feel the depths of what is coming up because we are so powerless and we are not powerful enough because we're so disconnected from our divine power that we have to do all of these things to try not to feel the fear, try not to feel the terror. And it's like the power is in diving into all of that.
Yeah.
And that's why this is Divine Warriors work, because who wants to do that? You know, who wants to go into the dark cave? And most people don't. And most people would rather stand outside the cave and go, give me all the affirmations so I don't have to go in there. And it's like, that's what keeps you outside of the cave. And you're never going to get out of the cave because you're not even willing to go in.
Yeah, there are a lot of teachings out there that instead, when you feel something, we'll call it negative. If you feel an emotion that you might not prefer, we'll just call them negative emotions right now, or negative thoughts. To think of something good, think of something happy, think of something we'll call positive, right? And this work is the opposite of that. It flips all of that on its head and says that negative thought or feeling is there for a reason. The way out of this negative thought or feeling is to fully embrace it for everything that it is. And when we are able to go into that thought and still bring our love and our light to it, that's where the transformation occurs. So just staying in, this is where like remaining positive is a good thing. Like we do want to have a positive outlook. We want to have a positive perspective, but that doesn't mean only looking at positive things. That means embracing when the negative, we'll call, things show up, embracing that with all that they are, and understanding that even when the negative aspects will still call it negative, right? Negative aspects show up, the things that we might not prefer, the things like shame or guilt or powerlessness or unworthiness, that we're having a positive outlook on them in the sense of, oh, this is a difficulty that's here for me to grow and evolve out of, instead of labeling it as purely negative, casting it aside and separating ourselves from it. The separation of the ego is what creates that illusion that it isn't us and creates our shadow. Like, this isn't us, I don't want this, instead of becoming a powerful enough being that can embrace every aspect of ourselves and therefore embrace every aspect of each human being, no matter how they show up. And when we go on that journey, which is what we're all talking about, what we offer, that's when then this transformation can start to occur. Because instead of looking upwards, oh, I just want to feel happy, it's like, no, I can feel the range of any emotion, still bring my love and light to it. And that's true power.
Yes.
Right? That's what we're talking about, and that's what we're building. Yeah. And then when we go on this journey, the programs that we're talking about, this like people pleasing, from my own experience, there isn't that program I haven't found yet as like I go into it and there's one like core wound. It's more of a behavior that comes out, a behavioral program that comes out of an amalgamation of many different wounds.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And as I've been healing, I've noticed that I don't do that behavior anymore. It's like, it's not one where it's like, okay, I got angry and I punched the wall. The anger's there because I suppressed the sadness that I felt from this particular thing, it's not like that. It's not like as definitive. It's more like, I do this program because I don't feel powerful enough to handle other people's emotions. And so the more that I find, like, be okay with that within myself, this program of people pleasing simply disappears.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the thing is that, like, we haven't been taught this way of going in and healing in this manner, or just healing in general. Because the way that I've been living my life up until now is the coping mechanisms, and you don't know that there's true healing. I always thought, okay, I'll get triggered, I'll use a coping mechanism, whether it's, avoiding or, like, positive thinking or people pleasing, or even just distracting myself. And then the bad feelings go away. And then just until they come up again later. Like, I thought that like, I just got to get even better at these coping mechanisms. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize that there's more than that. Like, we can permanently heal these wounds that are getting triggered day to day. It's not just about solidifying those coping mechanisms, because I got really good at it, but I didn't know there was any other route. And when it comes to this type of work, really going in and feeling and bringing our love and our divine nature to these wounds, it's a really good mental image for me. Is like, if my inner child, or if you had a child come up to you and they were, like, irritated or frustrated, or they're experiencing this shame, or this, like, they feel really guilty, like, would you just shoo them away? Would you just turn your back and walk away from them? Would you put them down and make them feel bad for feeling these emotions that they can't control, that are coming up for them? No. Like, if they were coming to you with, let's say, frustration, and you just embraced them and you gave them a hug, that dissipates that frustration. They don't even have a choice. If you meet this frustration with love being the most powerful, highest vibration, there is no way that this frustration will not also turn into love. And so it's hard to sometimes see that within ourselves. Like, when I'm angry and we tell somebody, like, hey, just embrace it with your love. Like, what? Like, if I love the anger, it's just going to get even more angry. Why would I love it? Why not just, like, push it away? It's that concept of the frequency of that energy. And it's always been a helpful image to me, just because sometimes it's hard for people, especially when they're first getting introduced to this work. Like, you start with intellectualizing. You start with, like, how do I understand this work? So sometimes that's a good image.
Yeah. And truly, you can't understand what that means. Like, you can understand that conceptually, and that's why people probably reject it. But it's until you experience what it means to have presence, patience, surrender, unconditional love to what is arising within you, then can you only begin to understand this work. And because every morning I'm forced with, I wake up with so much anxiety, I see it as a gift now, man. It's been so brutal. Like, this man's my partner. He sees me every morning in bed just with one hand on my heart, because I'm going through it. And I'm learning what it truly means to love my pain. Like, it is so excruciating what comes for me in the morning. It literally feels like my entire, like, body is just caving into, like, the depths of hell. Like, that's really what I can describe it as. And allowing myself to just feel all of it. And every time my mind wants to judge it, resist it, all this stuff, to love even those programs, and to just be in full presence and surrender to what is. Being in that energetic experience helps me to truly understand this is what true alchemy is. Like, this is not me running away. Like, this is truly, I'm right here with you. I'm going to love the shit out of you, even though you are stabbing me. That's what it feels like. But I'm going to just be present with you. And I don't move out of that bed until it's literally begins to dissolve into peace. And it doesn't mean that in one morning it's over. No, like, it comes back. But the vibration of it changes constantly. So I'm like, oh, I'm doing some real work here. because I'm not judging. I'm not pushing it away anymore. It's like, you are here. Thank you for showing up. Let's just feel this together. Like, truly feel it together.
And when you truly feel it together, what happens?
I'm in this experience where all the noise goes away, and I'm just honored. I feel like I'm in the way of honoring. I'm honoring that you have been here with me for a long time. I'm honoring the inner child that is showing up in that moment. And I'm like, literally, I'm right here. And let's just do this together. Open your heart and let's just be in this together. I know it's scary. And she's scared. She's freaked out. She's constantly like, why are we doing this? It's like, no, this is how we heal this baby. Like, this is how we overcome this. And she has this sense. My inner child is like, I get it. Like, she doesn't get it, but she gets it. Because every morning when I show up with her, she's like, all right, let's go in. And it's like, let's go in. And I can feel all these subtle shifts in me of like, oh, I'm touching my power. I'm really coming home to my power because of the way that I truly radically show up for myself every morning.
Yeah. And it's I think that old paradigm of like feeling like those emotions are bad and wanting to get rid of them. And we shouldn't have to feel them because they're bad.
Yeah.
But really understanding that they're not bad. They're other emotions. Like, why are we denying half of ourselves? Like, we're just pushing away and denying. It's part of the human experience to feel this pain, to feel the spectrum of human emotion. And we aren't going to make it anywhere, and we're not going to have any growth if we are constantly denying that part of ourselves. So props to you, Ellie. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. And we've grown up with people, society, parents, family, whatever, that dehumanized us. Like today I was really thinking about, my brother was such an emotional child and he was always crying. And all my parents would say was like, you're such a crybaby. All you do is cry. And it's like, no wonder he's so angry. It's like because he's not allowed to feel the depths of what he was feeling growing up.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
I definitely got a lot of that. I remember from my sister growing up. I should have been just the feeling that just being inferior for being sensitive, and being told to grow up, and just being shamed and judged for being a sensitive little boy.
Yeah.
And sensitive.
Very sensitive.
There's been a big phase of that coming through for me right now. And wanting to be somebody else than I'm not. And this last kind of phase has been accepting, okay, this is who you are, and that's okay. Like, you're not supposed to be like everybody else. You're supposed to be uniquely you, and everyone else is supposed to be uniquely them, but it doesn't mean that you have to be the same as everyone else. And you can be sensitive, and that's okay. Just honor where you're at and your own journey.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's what society is. I guess I'm trying to put everybody into a box of normal,
Yeah.
And when you are like shamed for being sensitive and being, a little bit more like highly attuned to your emotions, it probably stems a lot of shame around who you are. And then I feel like, especially with men, I've noticed that it triggers the shame, but instead of feeling at some point you stop feeling the hurt, because it's like, why would you keep feeling hurt if you're getting shamed for feeling sadness? And it's like, let me mask it with anger. So then you trigger a man, and then he just jumps to anger. I feel like I see that a lot. And so it's like, okay, why is this anger? Usually there's like, it's hard to say. There's no like cookie cutter way. There's always, something underneath it that could be different. But a lot of times it's because of this shame of feeling hurt. You can't be vulnerable. You can't show the sadness. So anger is a lot more appropriate of a response. And then sometimes even getting shamed for the anger, even getting shamed for, outbursts. And so then it's like, okay, well, let me just shut down then. Won't talk, and I'll just be distant. And I feel like a lot of times we see that with men. Okay, I guess I can't feel anything. So I will just have to, shut up and be quiet and feel disconnected, because that's the most socially accepted thing.
And then what happens to that same person, because this is me,
this is me,
when they get really drunk, and then you're left to all that part, that deeper anger just starts to pour out of your psyche. And yeah, then how much harm is that causing?
Right.
Because you've
Right.
held everything in for so long because you were never taught how to manage it, and then you get wasted and it explodes out of you in these
Right.
outbursts of rage, and that's the opposite of dealing with that emotion in a healthy manner.
Right. I know. I always wonder about alcohol too. It's like, I mean, it's used to numb, but I also feel like we use it to almost feel connected with ourselves in a sense, because we are able to feel our emotions a lot easier. We don't have the masks. We're also able to connect with others a lot more, which we are like innately craving because we have those barriers kind of dropped. But I wonder, yeah, I always like think about how we use alcohol, and in a sense of like, are we using it to really try and meet whatever kind of needs we feel like we're meeting on a deeper level, or are we just kind of using it to numb? I feel like there's a lot of uses.
Yeah, I mean, when it took me back to when I was 17, grew up in the UK, so slightly different drinking culture. US, but on the whole, pretty similar. And I remember like having a couple glasses of wine at dinner, and then taking the bottle to up to my bedroom and putting, and just having another glass of wine, or finishing off the bottle, and having that glass of wine with a or two, whatever was left, watching a movie. And I remember I really liked it because at that age I would watch these movies, and it would allow me to, I would get so emotional, I would cry, and it would allow me to access that part of me whilst watching the movie, which clearly I'd been suppressing. It would feel good because it would be this release, right? But as we learn through this work, releasing energy, we need to create new language in the English language here, because there's many types of releasing. We can have a release from a healing, but we can also just release energy without getting to the root cause of why it's actually there. And that's the one that most of society is stuck in, going to the gym to release, release tension, to relieve stress. Well, it's not relieving stress if the reason why you're doing it is to cope with the stress that's there. If the only reason I'm, feeling this sadness is because the alcohol is letting me, I'm not actually transforming the energy. I'm just feeling it.
Right.
So
yeah. Even now they call it sometimes, I mean, like processing emotions, or like just feeling into, tapping into. I feel like a lot of like therapy approaches too, they want you to get down into like childhood memories in order to really bring up emotions. But it's like, okay, what do you do after they're released, or processed? That's kind of where it ends. And we assume that, oh, it's healing because I feel good afterwards. It's kind of breaking up some of these old traumas. And there could be aspects of healing, and when you are able to really feel into these emotions you haven't felt since you were a kid, or like maybe embracing or having a little bit more acceptance. But overall, it's just like you said, it's just a temporary feeling of kind of just releasing that emotion. And then, like I said, almost like that coping, where it's just okay until it comes back up again in a couple days or next week.
yeah.
It's still in your body. It's just the energy's moving throughout your body, and that's what you feel. That's what feels good. So it's still impacting your day-to-day decisions, maybe possibly leading to people pleasing, positive thinking, grabbing that bottle. It doesn't actually lead to true healing.
No, and I can tell you definitely for sure, like as soon as I started this work, the first 2 months, I knew I was connected to my heart because I would just cry. And at the first layer of my healing was just feeling all of this sadness that was around my heart. Like it was right on the surface. And as I was moving through that process, my soul was guiding me coming online, because it does through the heart. If anyone's listening that wants to understand how to connect to their soul, it's learning to connect through their heart, which is everything that we teach at MSU. And as I'm moving through this sadness, I'm having these visions, which I can see right now, of being back as that 17-year-old self and accessing that same sadness and feeling that part of me that it was right beneath the surface. It was so close to me being felt. That's why just a couple glasses of wine and a lovely rom-com could get me there. A good episode of One Tree Hill. I
Oh,
would,
yes.
and a glass of, sometimes even without a glass of wine, I was there. I was feeling that deep sadness, that deep loneliness, and the feelings of loss that were just ready to be felt. And it's incredible that I look back now, and all that it would have taken is somebody walking into my life at the age of 17 and being like, hey, let me just show you. It's going to take me 10, 15 minutes, how to energetically connect to your heart and start to process. We don't even have to go deep. We can just process what's on the surface. Now, when I get blackout drunk, that's completely different. That would be all of the deep, deep stuff that someone is suppressing. And you spend any time around bars or restaurants like I did, and you see when the lights go off and all this pain starts pouring out. And it's very sad to see how many humans have these demons. And all of us, we have these demons inside of us, all this pain that just wants to be seen and loved.
Yeah. And you see that with the sadness, you see the pain, you see the anger. You have the more bar fights, the more like people are a lot more easily triggered because they don't have so much walls up. They don't have that like thickness keeping them from accessing those emotions. And it's we're all craving it. We're all just craving this way to see ourselves deeper, to connect with each other on a deeper level. We just don't know how to do it. And we've just been stuck in this old patterns of quote unquote healing, or, what we think and what we thought was the best way to address our emotions and what we've been going through. But this is definitely the way to go. And like you said, when you're 70, I could have used this work a long time ago. I think a lot of people could say that. So
yeah, if only
I know.
this was in my awareness at that age, I would have had a very different life. But very grateful for the life that I did lead, because it led me to this place right now. And I just look back now and I see that, all of those experiences were here to lead me to where I'm at right now. And that's beautiful. But if this work was brought to the masses, we would be living in a very different world right now. And that's what we're here to do, Madison. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your stories and for doing the work on yourself to continuously heal. I know, congratulations, I'll officially say it out there, on the new beautiful child that you brought into this world.
Thank you.
I feel like that could be a wonderful podcast that we can do next time.
Absolutely.
Talking about your experiences with childbirth and integrating this work to all of that. So anyone who's at home listening that wants to work with Madison or anyone else, just come join us at mastersofselfuniversity.com. I'll throw the link on the screen if you're watching on YouTube right now. And find us on social media. If you have a podcast topic that you want Madison to go into and talk about, or any of us, please reach out and let us know, because we'd love to know what it is that all our listeners are interested in and enjoying. And thank you so much for being a part of this community and listening this far in. Madison, any final words before you jump off?
Just be aware. I'm going to taking this whole podcast into kind of looking back. Just be aware of the energy behind what you're doing, your behaviors, and just take that extra few minutes to drop into your heart and really be with what is coming up. And that's where it starts. That's the first little steps.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we'll see you next time, everyone that's listening. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Danny. Bye.